In this video, you're going to learn about change management. How should HR support change? What's our role in change management? That's coming up right now. Hi there, welcome to HR Shop Talk. I'm Andrea Adams and the host. This is a show where you get some expert insight into HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show by clicking on the button at the bottom of the screen so you can continue to learn from future guests as well as today's guest. And speaking of today's guest, my guest today is Don Adams. He has years of HR experience as a consultant and a manager, and the last name isn't an accident. Hi, Dad.
Hi.
Okay, so we're going to start out with the most basic question. Okay, what is change management and how is change management different from project management?
That's fairly straightforward. If you look at project management, that's really the what you're going to be changing, whether it's bringing in new technology, information technology or hardware, or different in practices, or maybe some customer relations things. So that's that. But change management is really rather not the what, but the how you go about doing it. And it's a lot of communication, a lot of consideration of the impacts of it, the changes that need to be made, the impact on the people, and all the steps that are needed to make sure that the project proceeds without hiccups.
Mm-hmm. Without hiccups where it comes to the people.
Right.
Things are changing all the time. You know, there's a new CEO or something. That's often that itself is a pretty big change, but we don't think about change management at times like that. So when is formal change management required?
I think the basics, I would say that when we're making changes, some form of those changes is going to require management. It might not be done formally. And in organizations, they're made up of a whole bunch of different components, and you start changing one thing and it impacts on others. And, and when it comes to making changes, often people's jobs are affected, or customer relations might be affected, the company might be affected. So all those things need to be in consideration. So we talk about managing change in an organization. Basically, all changes that are being contemplated need to be managed in a proper fashion.
So in a situation like that, whoever made the change, what should they be doing?
Well, they should be thinking about, okay, we're going to be making this particular change, and who are the stakeholders? Who's going to be affected? The internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders. What are the implications of that? And is it just a matter of notifying them it's going to happen, or that the person that's the change is going to be coached or not coached, or what kind of expectations that the customer should expect? And the customer may come back and say, I'm not particularly happy with that. Now, how are you going to solve my problem?
But in HR, the kind of change we're usually talking about is the type of change that affects employees.
That's correct. But I look at internally in organizations when I'm consulting, the position I take, you've got internal customers and you got external customers, and they both need to be treated in the same fashion. No surprises. Make sure the service level is where it needs to be. And let's make sure that when we're introducing those changes, all those considerations have come into play. And some of them are going to be really, really short and simple and that sort of thing, and just as information transfer. Others may not be so easy.
Right. So how can HR contribute to successful change? If you found this interesting or helpful, subscribe and talk to us. What challenges you about change management? Let us know in the comment section below. And back to you. So what are some important elements of a change management plan?
It depends entirely on the situation and the organization, and possibly the culture of the organization. So there's not a blueprint for all of this stuff. And when we start contemplating changes and start making changes, there may be training that's required. There may be some downsides, and so there may be some people that are going to lose jobs. We may not need to be recruiting people with skills that we don't have at this point in time. So there's a whole myriad of things that can come to the forefront And HR needs to be, in my view, the front row and center in terms to addressing those kind of changes.
You talked about training. Did you mention communication?
If I didn't, I should have. Communication is like the oil you put in your car, and communication is that lubricant in organizations.
Next question. Do you think change management is an HR function?
By my comments, I think it's absolutely essential. To me, the custodian of all that is HR. Sometimes we just think that people are there, they're getting paid, so why do we have to do all this stuff? It's really important because at the end of the day, organizations are dependent on the commitment of the employees. They need to understand what is required and to be committed to that.
When you and I were talking about this conversation we were going to have about change management, you mentioned the difference between change management in a large company, which is the type of company I've typically worked at, versus that at small companies, which I think is where you've done a lot of your consulting. Can you talk about that difference?
Well, in a large organization, there's a multiplicity of relationships, and those all have to be taken into account. And so it can be much more complex. In smaller organizations, you need everybody's commitment 24 hours a day.
What could HR professionals do to get more proficient at change management?
This is an excellent question. So the educational part, I think, is really important. All I can say is if you haven't had that kind of exposure into systems thinking or organization development and change, you might be able to pick that up on, online or taking extra classes or going to seminars and that sort of thing, because I think it's absolutely vital. I'd like to address for anybody that's still in school, the choice of the university, the professors that are involved, the courses that are involved, both in the business school and outside. Find out what kind of books that and authors that they are looking at. Getting exposure to people like that can be really, really important. And then once you're out, hopefully you end up working for a good manager, which is the most important decision that you're going to make. It's all a learning curve.
Okay, so change management is critical in ensuring that organizations can achieve their goals and that, as Dawn mentioned, employees are committed to what the company is trying to achieve. Performance management is also about getting the best out of people. Here's a link to that episode, and I've also added the link in the description. See you next time. Thanks for watching.